In the summer of 2005, the staff of a major bank in Brazil arrived for work on a Monday morning. They opened the vault and found a hole in the floor. A neat tunnel led away into the earth, stretching the length of a football field. And the vault, which had held a fortune, was almost empty. Over a single weekend, a gang had stolen around $70 million in untraceable cash without firing a shot. This is the Banco Central heist. Welcome to Curio Hour, where we uncover the strange, the unsolved, and the unforgettable. Today's story: the Banco Central heist. Our story takes place in the city of Fortaleza, on the northeastern coast of Brazil, in the year 2005. In the heart of the city stood a branch of the Banco Central, the central bank of Brazil. It was a heavily fortified building, designed to be impregnable. Its vault was a marvel of security. It sat below ground, protected by steel-reinforced concrete more than 3 feet thick, along with alarms, sensors, and cameras. Inside that vault on this particular weekend was an extraordinary amount of cash. The bank was holding a vast quantity of used banknotes that were due to be checked and recirculated. We are talking about pallets stacked with currency. In total, around 160 million Brazilian reais, worth roughly $70 million at the time. And here is the detail that made it the perfect target. Because these were used out-of-circulation notes awaiting processing, their serial numbers had not been recorded. That meant the money was completely untraceable. If a thief could get to it, it would be like stealing pure, anonymous cash. A criminal's dream. There would be no marked bills to track, no serial numbers to flag at a bank, nothing to connect the cash to the crime once it left the vault. For anyone bold enough to take it, it was as good as invisible. The gang behind the heist understood that they could never break in through the doors. The front of the bank was far too secure, so they decided to come from below. Their plan was breathtaking in its ambition. They would dig a tunnel by hand, all the way from a nearby building, underground, and up into the vault itself. First, they needed a base of operations. About 2 blocks from the bank, they rented a small commercial property, a house on a busy street. To explain the comings and goings and the trucks that would be needed, they set up a fake business. They posed as a company selling artificial grass and landscaping supplies. It was a clever cover. A landscaping company would naturally receive deliveries, load and unload trucks, and haul away large bags. The perfect disguise for moving tons of earth. The gang, believed to number around 20 to 30 people, included skilled diggers, engineers, and planners. This was a professional, well-organized operation. And then in secret, beneath the innocent-looking landscaping shop, the digging began. It would take them 3 long months. The tunnel they dug was a genuine feat of engineering. It ran for about 250 feet, the length of nearly a football field, deep underground. But it was no crude burrow. The tunnel was carefully constructed, about 1 meter square, just big enough to crawl through, and remarkably sophisticated. The walls and ceiling were lined with wooden panels and plastic to prevent collapse. The floor was reinforced. It was a stable, well-built passage. Even more impressively, the tunnel had its own lighting and ventilation system. Electric lights ran its length, and an air system pumped fresh air to the diggers far below. Digging it was grueling, dangerous work. The gang had to remove tons of soil and sand and dispose of it all without arousing suspicion. This is where the landscaping cover paid off. The excavated earth was mixed in with the business's supplies and hauled away in trucks, hidden in plain sight. Day after day, week after week, the tunnel crept forward, beneath the streets, beneath the traffic, beneath the feet of thousands of unsuspecting people. The diggers had to navigate with precision, using surveying tools to make sure they were heading in exactly the right direction toward the vault. A single miscalculation could send them off course, or worse, set off the bank's sensors. They had to come up at exactly the right spot and stay below the alarms. Finally, after 3 months, they reached their destination. They had arrived directly beneath the vault. Now came the hardest part of all. Above them was the vault floor. More than a meter of steel-reinforced concrete, the bank's last and greatest line of defense. Using specialized tools, the gang carefully cut and drilled their way up through this immense barrier, working quietly to avoid triggering the sensors inside. And on the weekend of the heist, they broke through. A hole opened up in the floor of the vault, and the thieves climbed up into the treasure chamber. Before them lay the prize. Pallets and containers stacked with millions upon millions in cash, completely untraceable, completely unguarded from below. They worked through the weekend, lowering the money down into the tunnel and ferrying it back to the landscaping shop, load after load. When they were done, they had taken around 3.5 tons of banknotes. Then they vanished, leaving only the hole, the empty space, and the long, silent tunnel. The crime went completely undetected over the weekend. The vault's alarms and sensors, designed to catch intruders coming through the door, never registered the threat from below. It was not until Monday morning, when bank staff opened the vault for normal business, that the staggering truth was revealed. They found the gaping hole in the floor and the tunnel leading away into the darkness. The cash was gone. Brazil had never seen a robbery like it. The scale of the theft was almost incomprehensible. It was one of the largest bank robberies in the history of the world, and the largest ever in Brazil. Investigators were astonished by the professionalism of it all. The tunnel, the ventilation, the cover business, the precision. This had been planned for many months. And the gang had been careful. They had reportedly worn gloves and cleaned up after themselves, leaving very little forensic evidence behind in the tunnel or the shop. But a crime this big could not stay quiet for long. The police launched a massive investigation, and the sheer amount of cash now circulating would prove to be the gang's weakness. $70 million is an enormous amount of money to spend without drawing attention. And some of the gang were not nearly careful enough. Suspicion was raised when people in the area suddenly began making lavish purchases in cash. In one now famous case, a group bought 11 vehicles at once, paying in cash. Such spending was a glaring red flag. Investigators began pulling on these threads, tracing the cash and the suspects across the country. Over the following months and years, the police arrested many people connected to the heist. Some were caught with cash, others were identified through the investigation. But catching the robbers was only half the battle. The other half was recovering the money. And here the authorities had far less success. Despite the arrests, the vast majority of the stolen $70 million was never found. Only a small fraction was ever recovered by the authorities. The untraceable cash had scattered into the wider world, spent, hidden, laundered, or buried. The very quality that made it the perfect target made it impossible to track. The story took even darker turns afterward. Several people connected to the heist were later kidnapped by other criminals, hoping to seize a share of the legendary fortune. To this day, most of the money from the Banco Central heist remains missing. It is out there somewhere, a vast, anonymous fortune that simply disappeared. The heist remains a legend in the world of crime. A monument to patience, planning, and sheer audacity, where the criminals beat one of the most secure vaults in the country. They did not blast their way in. They did not storm the doors. They simply dug quietly for 3 months and walked away with a fortune. The Banco Central heist.